What if the missing piece to Boston's championship puzzle has been waiting in Portland all along? There's a certain electricity that pulses through TD Garden when a shot gets swatted into the third row. That visceral, crowd-erupting rejection that changes momentum in an instant. Boston Celtics fans remember that feeling well, because Robert Williams III used to deliver it on a nightly basis. Now, as the Celtics navigate an unexpectedly turbulent 11-9 start and sit precariously in 8th place in the Eastern Conference, whispers are growing louder about a potential reunion that could reshape their defensive identity. The basketball gods work in mysterious ways, and sometimes they offer second chances. According to Jake Fisher of the Stein Line, the Portland Trail Blazers are now significantly more open to moving Williams than they were just 12 months ago. With his contract expiring this summer and Portland's youth movement accelerating, the Time Lord, as Boston fans affectionately dubbed him, might be available for a homecoming that could electrify the Celtics' championship aspirations. But here's the million-dollar question that should be keeping Brad Stevens awake at night. Is this the defensive reinforcement Boston desperately needs? Or would pursuing Williams be chasing ghosts of greatness past? Let's cut through the noise and examine what's actually happening in the Pacific Northwest. For the first time since departing Boston, Williams is stringing together meaningful stretches of basketball. He's appeared in 12 of Portland's last 14 games, earning consistent rotation minutes, and most crucially, staying on the court. This cannot be understated. Injuries have been Williams' kryptonite since joining the Blazers, limiting him to a mere 26 total games across 2 brutal seasons. That's not a typo. 26 games in 2 years. For a player who was once a legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate, that's heartbreaking. It's also precisely why Portland is willing to listen to offers. But when Williams is healthy, and that's admittedly significant, when the tools remain tantalizing, the defensive instincts haven't vanished. The timing on blocks still exists. The mobility that made him such a nightmare for opposing offenses continues to flash. He's not the all-defensive force who terrorized the league during Boston's 2022 Finals run, but the foundation is still there, waiting to be rebuilt. Williams brings 3 elements that Boston has struggled to replace: elite rim protection, intelligent short-roll playmaking, and genuine defensive versatility. He can switch onto guards without becoming a liability. He can protect the paint without sacrificing mobility. He can make the right read in the dunker spot and turn defensive rebounds into instant offense. These aren't minor qualities. They're championship-caliber skills that the Celtics have been piecing together through committee since his departure. The Celtics deserve credit for how they've managed their front-court situation. After losing Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, and Luke Kornet to various circumstances, many predicted a defensive collapse. Instead, Boston has remained competitive through creative roster management and player development. Neemias Quetta has taken a legitimate developmental leap, showing flashes of the rim protection and finishing ability that made him an intriguing prospect. Luka Garza provides floor spacing and offensive versatility. Xavier Tillman brings playoff experience and defensive IQ. Chris Boucher offers energy and shot blocking in spurts. It's a functional rotation. It's even been effective at times. But let's be brutally honest, none of these players bring what peak Robert Williams delivered. When Williams was healthy and locked in, he was a game changer in the truest sense. He altered possessions before they even developed. Opposing coaches designed entire offensive schemes around avoiding him. He turned good defensive teams into elite ones. The question isn't whether Williams at his peak would improve this Celtics team. The question is whether that peak still exists, buried beneath 2 years of injury frustration and inconsistent minutes. Here's where reality crashes into hope. Williams is earning approximately $13.3 million on an expiring contract. For Boston to acquire him via trade, they'd need to match that salary, which means moving rotation pieces that the team can't afford to lose midseason. The cleanest path would involve Sam Hauser, whose shooting has been valuable for Boston spacing. Some scenarios include Anthony Simons coming back from Portland, but those constructions become complicated quickly and don't necessarily benefit either franchise. Portland wants draft capital and young assets, Boston needs to preserve its core and maintain flexibility. A midseason trade feels unlikely unless circumstances change dramatically. The Celtics aren't positioned to make a major move without compromising their rotation, and Portland isn't desperate enough to accept lesser offers just to clear Williams' expiring deal. But that doesn't close the door. It just shifts the timeline. If Portland can't find a trade partner offering adequate value, the buyout market becomes fascinating. Williams' contract falls under the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, and, crucially, Boston is no longer operating in second-apron territory. That means they'd have a legitimate shot at signing him if he becomes available. Imagine this scenario. Portland, focused on developing Donovan Clingan and their younger front-court pieces, decides that holding Williams through the end of the season serves no purpose. They negotiate a buyout. Williams hits the market, and suddenly Boston has an opportunity to add a player who knows their system intimately, has established chemistry with their core, and possesses exactly the defensive skill set they're missing. The buyout market has produced championship difference makers before. It's not the glamorous path, but it's often the smartest one for teams navigating luxury tax concerns while trying to add specific talents. Even if a buyout doesn't materialize, free agency this summer presents the most realistic and sensible path for a Williams reunion. Boston will reassess their entire front-court situation with the expectation of returning to full strength. They'll evaluate what worked, what didn't, and what gaps remain. Williams checks multiple boxes. He knows Brad Stevens' system inside and out. He's played meaningful minutes alongside Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. He understands the defensive principles that make Boston's scheme work. He doesn't need months of integration. He could step in and contribute immediately. The financial framework makes sense too. An expiring contract means Williams will be looking for his next deal, and Boston can offer something Portland can't: a genuine championship opportunity. After 2 injury-plagued seasons in a rebuilding situation, the chance to compete for a title with familiar faces might be exactly what Williams needs to rediscover his peak form. He doesn't need to be the 2022 version of himself. He doesn't need to be an all-defensive selection. He just needs to be healthy enough to provide 20 to 25 minutes of intelligent rim protection, short-roll playmaking, and defensive versatility. That's the bar. That's the realistic expectation. Boston's defensive metrics this season tell a story of inconsistency. They're good enough to compete with most teams, but they lack the game-changing defensive presence that defines championship-caliber units. They can be beaten at the rim. They can be exploited in pick-and-roll coverage. They can be overwhelmed by athletic bigs who attack the paint relentlessly. Williams, even at 75% of his former self, addresses these vulnerabilities. His mere presence changes how opponents attack. His timing on blocks creates hesitation. His ability to switch and recover allows Boston to play more aggressively on the perimeter. The Celtics didn't have consistent rim protection during last postseason, and it showed in critical moments. Adding Williams, whether through buyout or free agency, could be the difference between a second-round exit and a legitimate championship run. For now, this remains a developing situation worth monitoring closely. A midseason trade still feels unlikely given the financial complications and roster implications. But the possibility is real, and it's growing more realistic as Portland's season unfolds and their priorities crystallize. The buyout market presents a more viable path if Portland decides Williams doesn't fit their timeline. Free agency this summer offers the cleanest, most logical route for both sides to reconnect on terms that make basketball and financial sense. If Williams' time in Portland winds down as expected, the Celtics are one of the few teams where the fit is obvious, the need is genuine, and the timing could align perfectly. Sometimes the league brings players back to the places where they played their best basketball. Sometimes redemption arcs lead home. Brad Stevens built his reputation on making smart, calculated moves that others overlook. Bringing back Robert Williams III, whether in March or July, could be exactly that kind of move. The kind that looks obvious in hindsight. The kind that championship teams make when the opportunity presents itself. The Time Lord's clock might be ticking in Portland, but in Boston, there's a defensive identity waiting to be reclaimed, a front court waiting to be fortified, and a championship window that demands every possible advantage. Are the Celtics ready to make this move when the moment arrives? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you think Williams could be the defensive anchor Boston needs, smash that like button